All right, welcome back. We are talking about technology tools for education and high level. What is the flipped classroom? The flipped classroom and blended learning are things that we're all starting to take more seriously. I'm also going to show you some great tips on how to flip your classroom and incorporate blended learning environments into your teaching style. So let's get started. So the flipped classroom at a high level is essentially flipping the traditional approach to lecturing in class and doing homework at home, and literally flipping that idea where the lectures are recorded via video and students can watch them at home and then do the homework, which is the activities, the collaboration, the actual work itself at school, where you can have a guide and a mentor with your teacher. So that is what the flipped classroom is. High level. Blended learning is really starting to learn with video. All of this kind of is cruxed on how do we use video to help students learn, because now they can learn from home. Now they can learn with their smartphone, right? Watching with their smartphone, watching with a computer. And it's very conducive to allowing them to do research on their own and leverage the learning management tools that you have available to you. So very excited about this. The definition is a flipped classroom is basically an instructional strategy that's kind of like blended learning. And I have read that blended learning is when learning is anywhere from 30% to 80% done online. Okay, so traditional learning would be 0% online, everything in the classroom. Online learning would be 80 to 100% online. And this blended learning is really where flipped classrooms come in. It's where, partially we're learning online and partially we're collaborating in the classroom. So we're going to talk about great ways to do that. Now, Salman Khan is actually the founder of Khan Economy, and he really helped really pioneer the flipped classroom. And it's that idea of taking the lectures at home and bringing the homework into the classroom. It removes this one-size-fits-all lecture where all the learning and all the presentation of new content happens in the classroom. And it increases collaboration with peers and teachers. And it uses technology to humanize education. And I'm a true believer in this. I believe it's a big deal. So the traditional classroom is a lecture and homework, right? Lecture in the classroom, homework at home. The flipped classroom is enjoying and watching those lectures at your own pace, at your own style at home, while you're away from the class, and then doing the activities, the collaboration, bringing the fun to the in-person style teaching, which is where you have the ability to be that guide and that mentor in students' life in person. Now, many of us are transitioning from a traditional classroom to a blended learning environment. And at the top here in blue, we have the traditional classroom. And so before class, students do the reading and the homework, right? Or maybe they come unprepared completely before class, right? So maybe they didn't read the homework. And then in class, there's a lecture, and the students are supposed to take notes. This is what happened when I went to school, right? Note-taking was so important. And then after class, the faculty's not really there, and students just do the homework, and then, they turn in the homework when they go into class. That's the traditional classroom. But in the blended classroom, students are able to kind of gain a familiarity with that subject using the online management software, right? The learning management software and the materials and videos that you provide them before they even get to class. So we're really capitalizing on before class time and after class time and making the most of the time that we have during class. Because when we get to during class or even before class, we can complete assignments, quizzes to really ensure that the preparation is there so that when we finally do get into class, the faculty members and the teachers can be guides and they're mentors, and they can use that time to collaborate and practice on material. So students are actually coming familiar with the subject, coming in with their questions, and they are ready to learn and go further. So it's really working, and the science is really behind it. We're going to show some real world examples. This is what we're working up to. So we're not here yet, guys, but we're working up to it. And essentially what this is this is a video. This is just a picture of a video clip that we're going to learn how to make. And you can see here, this layout here is similar to what we're going to make right here. In this course, we're going to make a cool history lesson where you're going to learn how to make awesome, engaging videos. Because as you can tell, those videos that students watch at home become more and more important. So that's one screenshot here. Here's another one where, again, the teacher is right in the center, or right in, I guess, the side here, but focused with a webcam, remaining present, speaking and looking at the camera. And then next to you would be your content, whether that's a video or possibly a video from a student. And we'll talk about co-creation of content with your students as well. Now, here's a great example of a flipped classroom deployment. And so we're just going to assume that we're talking about a history lesson, but this really applies to almost any type of lesson. So as an exercise, as you finish this segment of the course, think about how you would apply the flipped classroom in your environment. So before class, students are logging into that learning management system and watching those videos. Let's assume it's a history lesson. They're watching those clips that we just looked at, right? So they're watching this video that we created, and hopefully it's an engaging video, right? It's got pictures in it, it has a presentation, it has videos in it, and the whole video itself is very engaging and revealing and rich with media. And that's what you're going to learn how to do in this course. So I'm very excited about teaching you guys how to do all of this. And that would be before class, right? Now, during class, we have the ability to work on research projects and create questions and bring those questions to class so students can follow instructions on a history lesson where it's a topic of interest, right? So this is where we get that opportunity to have those topics of interest and really talk about them. And then finally, students can collaborate in class about the history lesson and share their own research. So they're actually doing research, they're actually coming to class more prepared, and now we can collaborate and share more kind of advanced ideas than simply going home and doing that homework at home. So an idea I want to run by you guys is the teachers now and the students together can co-create, and you can ask students to submit pictures, submit videos. So here's a couple examples, and then we'll talk about this throughout the course on how you can use this student-generated, student-submitted media in the videos that you're going to create for your flipped classrooms. So some of the types of media that students may be able to submit to you is audio. They can use their phone, for example, to record audio. And that is a great way to get recordings. Now, I'm just going to show my smartphone here, and it's going to quickly show you guys how this works. Can we just show this with the overhead camera? I'm going to show my smartphone here. I want to do a lot of showing and show you guys how it works. There we go. This is my smartphone here. And you can just simply click voice memos and record an audio. So we can go ahead and click that record button. Now I'm actually recording audio, and I can quickly email this. All students should know how to do that. It's very easy to do. Phones can always create that type of content. So it's great for phones. It's great for devices like that. And so now students can submit audio for podcasts. They can obviously take pictures with their phones. Everyone knows how to use the camera app. I don't have to show you that. Everyone knows how to use the camera app. They can take pictures. They can record videos themselves. I think you'll be surprised how great students are at shooting videos. Now, you could ask them to submit videos shot with their phone. You could also ask them to do screen captures of important websites or important findings along their way. And of course, they can use Zoom to do short little screen captures and email you those. And also, if your students are meeting in small groups or collaborations, they can record those meetings and submit them to you. There's so many different ways that students can submit content themselves. And I think you'll find it a very rewarding process. as the teacher, as you're accepting all of this material from students, you can then create more content with the students themselves. So you can show collages of what other students are working on and incorporate that into your next video that you're creating for your learning management system. You can create student videos inside of your lectures, and you can even share these pictures during meetings that you're hosting with the students. So I highly suggest to get collaborative, start to work with these students and really bring them together. So students themselves are I think you're gonna find really like to submit video content and pictures. And here's some students here playing with a green screen. Not everyone has access to a green screen, but your school may actually have one. So a lot of awesome tools for this kind of stuff. Students are very tech savvy, and the idea of creating content for class is very appealing, and it works great for flipping the classroom. So that traditional classroom where everything's happening, all the content is being disseminated in the class, it's really starting to change. And at least we're seeing a hybrid classroom, or this flipped classroom, where the content delivery itself is happening much more online with videos. Now, as we move to this hybrid classroom, students can, attend class physically, or they can actually generally have the option to join remotely. And so if you are teaching in class, or you do believe that the lecture itself in class can be recorded, you can record what's happening in class and post that to your learning management system as well. It's great for accountability, and you can make sure maybe, for example, finals might be held in person, but other things would not have to be. Now, with that being said, I want to talk about a very important topic, which is the difference between synchronous learning and asynchronous learning. Synchronous learning happens in real time, okay? So that would be in class. Asynchronous learning happens on your own schedule. So asynchronous learning would be students at home finding that extra 30 minutes, finding that extra hour to watch the courses that you've taken. And this is such an important concept to understand, because more and more students are getting used to asynchronous learning, which, as we've talked about, transfers very well to professional development and real world careers, where you have to manage your own schedule, and you have to manage the ability to learn and the ability to produce content, the ability to write documents and do work, right, in the real world, and you have to manage your schedule. So synchronous learning is really great, and it happens in the classroom generally, or happens online. It happens in real time. So let's talk about the benefits and the disadvantages of each. So asynchronous learning, right, is very flexible. Students can go and learn whenever they want. They can have multiple starts. They can repeat a lesson. They're not really forced to digest everything in one setting like you would be in a classroom with a lecture. And maybe you missed something, maybe you had to go to the bathroom, you missed some notes, right? You can go back because it's been recorded. So it's very flexible, and the pacing of it can be fit to, be customized. And that's really, really important. It's also affordable in many ways as well, because students can now, basically change and adapt. And that's a big change in the education space. Now, the disadvantages is isolation. There's such thing as Zoom fatigue. And so we can feel isolated, and we can risk, apathy, right? It's a little bit, it's not the best, but if we blend these two together, we can get the benefits of both without having to deal with the disadvantages. So the synchronous is amazing for classroom engagement, right? Dynamic learning, the ability to be a mentor and guide the student where they need guidance. So the instructional depth can go deeper. So if you blend these two together, you can kind of get away from that rigid schedule issue, which is an issue if students are sick or can't make it to school, or if there's a reason for health reasons why they can't go to school, or also there's technical difficulties, and that is a big issue. And we'll talk a little bit about technical issues and going over them and overcoming them in this course later on. Now, you can create video content from the classroom. And this is a great idea. We talked about capturing lectures, capturing video in the classroom and making it available in the learning management system. And as you do that, I want to talk a little bit about engagement. Now, we want to educate, but we also want to engage and entertain. And something that has come up is called edutainment. And so what I want to do really quickly is I want to go to Kahoot.com and show you guys how easy it is to create a quiz. So I'm just going to go ahead and log in. I already have a login with Google, and I just went to Kahoot.com. And these are so great for engaging students. So what we're going to do is hit the big old create button right over there, if you can see that. And we're going to hit the create button, and we're going to start creating we can do an informative assessment, or we can actually get to know your teacher, which is a great one as well. Especially if we're teaching all online, it's a great one to learn about. But let's do an assessment, and we're going to stick with our history kind of lesson here. And we're going to talk about what was the capital city of the USA in 1850. Now, you can add a picture, which I think is a great idea, or you can actually do image reveals, which slowly reveals the image that is the answer to the question as the time limit comes out. So these are great options for making your educational experience more fun for students. So we have New York City, or Philadelphia. This is what we're doing here is we're adding in these, and we can add pictures to these to have it instead of text. And we'll leave a silly answer, and we'll keep going. So over here on the right-hand side, we're seeing our quiz, right? And we're seeing questions. We can actually import slides, and we can actually just choose from a question bank. Look at this. How many different people have been president? How many different people? And we can actually just pull these in. These are so great. They make it so easy. How many people play Fortnite? So just for an example, how many different types of dolphins are there? We'll just add a few of these just so you can see how easy it is. How many different forms of art are there? And that gives you an idea of how to set these up. So you can create your own custom ones, you can pull them in, and then when you're done, you can go ahead and jump into it. So I have to increase my plan to show that further, but just wanted to quickly show how Kahoot works. It's a great tool. Now, as we're talking about asynchronous learning versus synchronous learning, I wanted to take a moment to talk about two-way communications, because that's where you can really engage with your students. One-way student learning, if you will, is where the student's in control of their asynchronous learning, right? And they're taking your online courses, they're watching your online videos, they are using the learning management system to do so. But then in synchronous learning, we're using two-way communication to get feedback, to be a mentor, to be a guide. And that mentor and guidance opportunity is something that's so important, and I want to make sure we spend some time on how to get the most out of that. So first of all, it's important to share some personal stories, and you should be trying to get your students to share their personal learning journey with the rest of your class so that we can foster those relationship building process. It's foundational to team communication, but it's also foundational to sharing with the class, and especially if we're talking about a distance learning environment. I want to introduce you to a tool that we talk a lot about in online meetings, which is called equity of voice. And with equity of voice, what we would like to happen is that everyone has an equal chance to speak. And in that way, I have this in a larger slide here. Let's say there's 5 people in your meeting. Well, everyone would spend 1/5 the time speaking and 4/5 the time listening. Now, that is a great way to do certain types of engagement, and we'll talk about them. But on the flip side of equity of voice is something called equilibrium of voice. Now, equilibrium of voice says, well, this is going to be more of a lecture today, so the teacher's going to spend the most time speaking. and everyone else will spend the most time listening. But it's basically based on your agenda. What are your goals for that online meeting? So think about that as an educator. I would imagine that because you're delivering most of your lectures online, the lecturing and learning is taking place through the videos, you can spend more of your time listening. And that is, I've heard from so many different teachers that spending the time listening in these online meetings is of utmost importance. So consider these ideas. You might not be able to achieve equity of voice in every meeting. There's going to be some students who don't want to speak or are shy, right? And we'll talk a little bit about getting engagement out of them. There are engagement tools. You can ask them to collaborate. You can ask them to annotate. You can ask them to use emojis in the chat. Maybe not everyone's ready to speak up at all times, but consider that equilibrium of voice. Who do you want to speak today? Are you going to challenge a student to share something? Or are you going to show a video that a student already created? That's a great way to get folks to speak up in your class. So here, let's show this large screen here. These are the different types of times that you should be thinking about equity of voice versus equilibrium of voice. So equity of voice, again, everyone kind of getting to share a shared amount of time is good for collaboration. So you're getting teams to collaborate together. And one great tip that we will go over in this course is how to use Zoom breakout rooms so that you can increase the amount of equity of voice by having smaller groups of people. So smaller groups of people can speak more and share more because they don't have to wait longer amount of times for everyone to talk in a larger group. Now, if you're starting a new project and you're in the brainstorming time, it's good to hear from everyone. So you should allow everyone to chip in on the topic and weigh in and share something. A quick tip that I like to do is a little lightning round. If everyone knows a lightning round is coming at the beginning of your meetings, you can ask each person to give one idea, and then everyone kind of starts in on the brainstorming. Now, new classes can do team building exercises, and this is where we're doing icebreakers. This is where we're doing activities. Here's a great one for you that you could try. It's the desert island activity. If you were to go to a desert island and had to bring one item, what would it be? You could switch that to say, if you were going to take this exam today or tomorrow, what would be the one research book that you would bring to finish this exam? And it's a great way for students to kind of get started. If you're doing interclass or team collaboration, equity of voice is important. And if you're doing like an educational round table where there's a lot of sharing, you want to make sure everyone gets an equal voice. Now, student-teacher presentations would use equilibrium of voice. So you're the teacher, you have a lecture or presentation to give, you're going to probably speak more. And that's based on an agenda. There might be a weekly class update, or we're going to talk a little bit later about motivational Mondays or something that's specifically scheduled to happen. And you need certain people are going to need to talk more than others, but it's going to be an equilibrium because it's planned. Now, student performance review meetings obviously would be a lot of teacher talking and then a lot of student response. Classroom hours, those are those after hours classroom times that you have available where the teacher is really just available to students. And then finally, we have subject matter experts. And those subject matter experts are right here. Okay, so we are going forward here. And at the core of either of these strategies, equity of voice, equilibrium of voice, engaged learning is the key. So are your students engaged? That's the key to student development. We want them to be engaged with some voice in your online meetings. Does it have to be equal to everyone else? Maybe, maybe not, depending on the type of lesson that you're doing. Now, I wanted to share this picture quickly. This is a great engagement strategy. If you can just make sure you're looking at the camera, then your students will feel more engaged and connected with you. This is an issue that a lot of teachers have. They're looking at their notes, they're looking away at a PowerPoint. So if you want to think about setting up your desk like this, where your laptop is in between a monitor with your students on it and your camera is right there, that really helps to keep that eye-to-eye connection that's so important with students. I wanted to mention that Zoom is totally free for K through 12 schools. So if you didn't know that, you can fill out a form to get Zoom for free. This is what Zoom looks like. We're going to do a whole segment on Zoom specifically. And I just wanted to mention it because the breakout rooms are a great way to get students into smaller sessions where even if it's a one-on-one session, so you could have your whole classroom going on and then take individual students into breakout rooms for one-on-one work where they might feel more apt to engage instead of the large group setting. So we'll talk about that in an upcoming video. So that takes us to the paradigm shift, which is we're allowing students to learn at their own pace now. They're no longer required to learn everything in the classroom. So that requires us to be more engaging and more of a video creator. So we find ourselves in the midst of education, engagement, and even bringing in incentives and competition. So we'll talk about structuring your online course in an upcoming segment, but the biggest takeaway from this course is going to be how to become a better video maker so that your online courses include everything that needs to segue from an effective online learning environment to an effective video communication strategy where you're using quizzes and assignments and assessments and tests inside of your lectures and courses. So a couple ideas to create awesome stuff would be to use annotation, right? So annotate, and we'll talk all about annotation in an upcoming chapter. Use document cameras, and we'll talk about using document cameras in a specific segment, so you'll learn that. And we'll talk about camera setup and then video creation software, and that's where we're really going to take this course to new heights. And it's going to be easy. Don't worry. You guys are going to learn how to do this. Now, I want to mention that not every teacher has access to lots of different cameras, document cameras, webcams. So we're going to be talking about how to create original content, even with just a smartphone, even with just the built-in webcam in your computer. If you have a little camera in your computer and the light turns on, when you go into Zoom, you have a built-in webcam, and we'll use that to create much higher quality videos. We'll have presentations and lectures that will all be created together, and you're really gonna create what I believe is highly interactive. Now, we looked at Kahoot briefly, right? That creates an interactive experience for students that can happen live on your Zoom meetings, or it can be built directly into your learning management system. So we're going to learn how to plan out our course so that inside of our lectures, we're prompting students to be prepared for a live assessment or a trivia or a quiz or the included items inside of your learning management system. So a couple tips, and then we'll finish this. This is a long one, but thank you for sticking with me, guys. I think that this is really important. One is that the content itself, right, is always more important than the production value. The problem is that the production value is what's going to keep students wanting to come back. And I have some very simple tricks to get the production value up. I imagine the content is what you've been spending years on. This is the transitional point where we're going to learn how to get the production value up to the same level as your quality. And that's what's really going to click with today's student generations. Now, it's important to find that technology, and that's why you're here, and that's what we're talking about today. Audio is always super important. Video, it kind of comes second. We're going to learn how to use advanced video production software, B-roll, video clips, all of these things together again. And it's going to be exciting, and you're going to learn how to use video capture software, video production software. And let's get into our next segment where we're going to talk about annotations. We're going to go one technology to the next until you're familiar with them and you have aptitude with them so that we can finally incorporate it all into creating lectures that are going to stun your students and make them happy. Let's get into it, guys, in our next video.